Hey everybody, welcome to the workshop. I'm Patrick from Douglas Fir Design, and I'm going to be talking to you about my favorite router bit. A tiny little mortising bit with a bearing. And I'm going to tell you why this one gets so much use and why I think it's probably one of the best investments you can make because it doesn't cost very much and it is incredibly useful. This is my router bit storage solution currently. Good morning, my precious. That is slot cutters and cove bits. This is roundover bits and dovetail bits. This is mainly straight bits and some mortising bits. This one is joinery specific router bits. And this is some decorative stuff that doesn't get used as much. And bearings, etc. So, lots of router bits, but the one that I reckon gets more use than anything else, maybe apart from a roundover bit, but we'll do a whole video on those soon, is this one. I am going to show you how you can make better joinery like this and things like this using a tiny router bit like this. The reason why this bit is so useful is because it's so short. The blade itself is less than 7 mil tall, and the distance from the bottom of the blade to the bearing is less than 10. It's about 9 or 8. What that means is that you can use the bearing to run along the wall of a pretty shallow mortise to cut the bottom out and remove the bottom material. So I'm going to show you 3 demonstrations of the way that I commonly use this bit. One is a half lap joint like this. Now, this half lap hasn't been fully fitted yet. It was cut on the table saw, on the panel saw, and the bottoms are really rough. Now, I can do a much better job on the panel saw. You can buy a flat top blade, which gets you a really flat bottom cut. But this was just roughed out using my standard general purpose or cross-cut blade. So it's left a pretty rough finish. It also means I can do kind of half the amount of cuts if I leave a rough finish and then clean it up with the router in a really accurate way. So we can use the trimmer router in like a handheld router, or we can put this on the router table, and I'll show you both. But I'm going to start off by cleaning this up using the trimmer router. So this stock is 20 mil, essentially. So I want my mortise to be exactly 10 mil deep. And I might just creep up to that. So the first pass I do might be 9.5, and then I'll do a cleaning pass. So using that little bit in the trimmer router allows me to use a tiny little reference edge like that. It's only, well, right now it's exactly 10 mil deep, to run a bearing along, which means I don't need to set up a secondary guide or some other way to stop my router bit cutting into the side walls of this little mortise. And when we fit them together, I get a perfectly flat fit. Now, like I said, there's lots of ways to achieve this, but I find if I'm doing a job that has lots of 20 mil mortises like this is an incredibly fast way to do it. You can also just do this directly in the router table, and in some ways it's less fiddly. Again, you kind of can't mess it up because the bearing's there. Even if you come out of the mortise, the bearing is still going to be riding on the side material, so it's never going to cut the actual work. That's why I think this bit is so useful for this kind of work. The next job is just a simple rebate joint like that, which is a joint that I often use for cabinet frames. I might do it in plywood or solid hardwood. I have cut that on the panel saw, and you can see I've left those ridges as before. Again, there's lots of different ways you could do this, but the really simple way to clean this up is to put that router bit into the table router or the handheld router and run the bearing along that edge. Now, a simple one like this, you could put a non-bearing router bit into the router table and use the fence to run along this edge. But I just find this to be really accurate and there's no cleanup afterwards. It's a really simple way for me to get these all just absolutely perfect. I'm going to demonstrate this, but just before I do, a really similar application is if you have a rebate or a channel in the center of a piece. Say you wanted to do a join like that, where this piece goes into the rebate. Exactly the same application really. You can use a trimmer router to run in that channel, in that rebate the whole way along. You could do this on a big, wide carcass where you've got like a 600 deep piece of plywood and you need the bottom of the channel to be perfectly flat, or a smaller bookshelf. It's just such a useful tiny little bit. I'm going to clean this one up on the router table. So on the router table, similar process, just really perfect, flat, and consistent results. And again, it's the fact that the router bit is so small and it has the bearing so close to the blade that makes that so effective. So the last little demo that I want to show you is just making a little dish, like a little key dish or a, I don't know, coin dish, that sort of thing. I've used a Forstner bit to hollow out the hole, but you can see the pin that the Forstner made. Now, I don't want to see the pin that the Forstner made, so I'm going to clear out the waste using the router bit. The depth of the majority of the dish here is about 12.7, but the pin itself is at least 2 or 3 mil deeper than that. So I'm going to set the router bit depth to probably about 15. I'm going to do it in the router table and the bit will remain captive within this little cavity and the bearing will run on the inside of that wall. I'll start at 14 mil and then move up to 15 as a final pass to make sure I've got that little divot removed. You could also do this with a trimmer router. Depending on the size of the hole, you just want to make sure that the trimmer router doesn't overbalance into one of those holes. So I hope you see why I find these mortising bits so useful. They are tiny but mighty and they're not terribly expensive. So go grab one. It will hopefully get you out of as many pickles as it has me and get some nice tight joinery, whether or not you have a router table or a trimmer router. Thanks for watching. There'll be links below to the actual product. I can't remember the item number. I just know it's a tiny mortising bit. There'll be more videos coming along. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're going to be coming out with more videos all the time from now on. So it's nice to see you. See you next time.